Good evening and welcome to the District of Sechelt regular council meeting of Wednesday, March 3rd. It is 7 p.m. and I'd like to acknowledge that we are coming to you from the territory of the Sechelt Nation. So we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'd like to add a notice of motion for endorsement of the Sunshine Coast call to action.
So under number 9, new business. So make 9.1. What would you like to call that? Call to act is call to action?
Endorsement of Sunshine Coast call to action.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? All right, seeing none, I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So we have in appointments and delegations tonight, we have with us the Sunshine Coast Regional District Chair, Lori Pratt, accompanied by CAO, Dean McKinley, and Chief Financial Officer, Tina Perot, to go over with us the SCRD 2021 budget for the District of Sechelt. And we'll have cameo appearances by Councillor Toth and myself. So we'll turn it over to Chair Pratt.
Thank you, Mayor Stegers. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I am coming to you from Half Moon Bay this evening, but I would like, which was in the traditional territories of the Sechelt Nation. But I would like to acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District does operate throughout 2 First Nations, through the Squamish First Nation territory as well as the Sechelt First Nation territory. So tonight we've decided this year at the Regional District to do our budget presentations a little bit differently. We are taking a really director-focused role. So the elected are taking the lead on the budget presentations, along with much support from staff that we are very, very grateful for. This is the last of our budget presentations. We had all of the electoral areas last week. Town of Gibson's was last night. The SIGD had their presentation earlier today, and we have saved Sechelt for last. Certainly not. I could say the best for last if you'd like, but we will. My area was first, and I say best was first. So we'll take that when we can. No longer socially distance. We'll decide that later. So it's great to see everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me here today. And as I said, we are supported by staff. So I have our CAO, Dean McKinley, our CFO, Tina Perot, as well as our communications and engagement manager of communications, Aidan Buckley, is joining us as well. So I am going to share my screen and we will get started. Oops. There we go. So it'll be about a 10 to 15 minute presentation. We will, there's time for questions at the end. But if there's a slide that you want me to stop on, please just stop me as we go. And the purpose of this information session is to provide an overview of the SCRD Round 1 budget, give information about taxation ahead of Round 2 budget, which is happening later this week, and speak about a lot of the projects that are being considered in the Round 2 budget. And we aim to answer questions such as, why are my taxes going up? How much will I be paying? And what am I getting for it? So the regional district timeline for budget, we started with pre-budget in November of 2020 with 2 days of reviewing rising concerns of projects that were upcoming and being considered. In the beginning of February 2021, we had 3 days of Round 1 budget where we started a lot of our deliberations. And so we've already had 5 full days of budget conversations. And right now we're doing our information sessions. And Tomorrow and Friday is when we're doing round 2 budget and doing those final deliberations and looking at some additional project information. So this is the 6th and final information session, and the details about the other information sessions are available. They were recorded for all the rural areas are available on the SCRD YouTube channel, and the town of Gibson's, if you'd like to see that, you can check out their YouTube channel. It's right at the beginning of their meeting that they had last night. And then after we're done our deliberations with round 2, we then have to adopt our budget on March 25th. So legislatively, regional districts are a bit earlier than municipalities. We have to have our budgets adopted by the end of March, whereas a municipality, you have, I believe, until May 15th to do yours. So what is impacting this year's budget? Asset renewal. We have a number of assets such as dams and the chlorination system at the Chapman water treatment plant that need to be updated to meet regulations. Some of these assets have not been updated in years. Updates are long overdue and are a contributing factor to the number of projects this year. We have utilized our reserves in the past for many projects, and these reserves are now depleted to a point where we need to look at taxation to ensure services continue to be available to residents. More projects and more challenges to meet the needs of our growing population, such as water and wastewater management, require more expertise, which means some more staffing. A number of positions were deferred from last year's budget into this year. And I know that you felt the same pressure in the district of Sechelt when we had COVID-19 come through. At the regional district, we had essentially passed our budget in March of last year. And then we were just talking, how it's been just about a full year since we've been in the pandemic and the shutdown situation, or we had to shut down in-person business. So what we made the decision at the regional district to actually go back into our budget and reduce taxation as much as possible. So that depleted our reserves, and it deferred a number of staff positions to work on some of these larger projects, just so we could mitigate some of the taxation implications for last year, when we didn't know what our economic situation was going to be coming out of the pandemic, or what it was going to look like. Because of course, March of last year, our world changed. So we have a number of other emerging items, such as infrastructure projects, such as the landfill closure, and then funding to ensure our vital emergency services can continue to function effectively across the coast. So we have a record number of projects. So we have 117 new projects, and we have 109 of the carry forward projects. So that gives us 227 projects that are either been carried forward or brand new for this year, for the 2021 year. And this is a record number. The full list can be found at scrd.ca/budget. Our website is continually being updated with additional information. So there's past staff reports, there's links to budget, a budget spreadsheet that shows all of the projects that have either been carried forward or have been already integrated into the 2021 budget, or proposed 2021 budget. And so check it out. As I said, scrd.ca/budget. And just a note on our projects. So we see some of the larger projects, but when we're talking about a project, it could be anything from a smaller project that doesn't take as much staff time or financial resources, such as purchasing a vehicle, all the way to the Sechelt landfill, which we're looking at 2.5 million, the dam upgrades, the groundwater investigation, emergency services, or the Chapman water treatment chlorination system replacement. So these are all big ticket items that we're looking at for this upcoming year, and many of them are mandatory things that we have to do in order to just provide our core services here on the Sunshine Coast and to meet our regulatory standards, and make sure that we're continuing to supply for sustainable sources of drinking water here on the Sunshine Coast. So the regional district is facing the same kind of cost pressures that we are as residents and as citizens. We have increased construction costs with labor, materials, and transportation. We have the increased operation costs of insurance, fuel, and maintenance. All of our assets, we have a lot of assets, everything from our swimming pools and our ice rinks to our wastewater treatment plant and our water systems that all require regular maintenance and regulatory compliance. We're also seeing a significant increase of green waste, and the cost associated with disposal and transport of this waste are continuing to increase as well. So when we're looking at our operating budget after round one, we're looking at a budget of 48.7 million. And you can see how that breaks down operating wise. So you've got about a quarter there for water and wastewater, just over a quarter for recreation and cultural services, 13% for transportation services, 16% for environmental services, and then the rest of the pie is filled out with general government, protective services, planning and development services, and health services. For our capital budget, we're looking at 29.1 million. So the majority of that is in the water and wastewater category. So about 3/4 of that pie. And then the rest is filled out between recreation and culture services, environmental, transportation, protective services, and general government. And then I will pass it over to Director Toth, or Councillor Toth in this case, to take on the next slide.
All right, thank you very much. So this is a sample notice that, a tax notice that the Director of Finance produced for us here in the District of Sechelt. And on it, they've highlighted most of the SCRD charges. There is one here that's got missed in the highlighting. So the regional district taxation portion of a property tax bill is fairly small in the grand scheme of things. On this one here, representing a house valued at $750,000, the regional district taxation was $438.91 for sort of general government operations, what have you. In addition to that, we've got the community recreation charge, which is a ad valorem taxed levy based on the value of improvements to land. And so in this tax bill, that was $428.69. And then we've also got the SCRD parcel tax for water of $276.94 and the recreation parcel tax of $112.34. The tax notice that comes from the District of Sechelt does not include the water user fees. Those are charged separately by the regional district. So next slide.
Certainly. One moment, Councillor. There you go.
Thank you. So of that ad valorem taxation, you know, sort of where do those tax dollars go? Just over 40% of what Sechelt pays to the regional district goes towards recreation and cultural services. So that's our pool, the ice rinks. That's funding that we provide to the archives, the museum, services on the coast, and what have you. General government, just under 10%. We've got protective services, 4%, which is our emergency preparedness, and so the emergency social services.
911, 911 towers, etc.
Yep. Transportation services, 20%. That's transit here on the coast, which the SCRD does operate in conjunction with BC Transit. Environmental services of just shy of 20%. That's landfill, that's recycling, that's green waste primarily. Health services, which for Sechelt, that's what we pay towards cemeteries. In other areas, they also contribute to the Pender Harbor Health Center. and then 1% towards planning and development. And that's around growth strategies and sort of long range planning for the Sunshine Coast as a whole. So next slide. This shows the water user fees and parcel taxes, as well as the recreation taxes, 2020 compared to 2021. So between the user fees and the parcel taxes, looking at an increase for 2021 of $71.37.
And $4.75 for recreation.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so looking at 3 different scenarios here: house valued at $500,000, a house valued at $750,000, and a house valued at $1 million. We can see sort of the breakdown of what the increase to SCRD taxes is going to look like for each of those homes, as well as the water user rates, the parcel taxes, the recreation parcel tax. The SCRD rate that's posted there in that table at the top is representative of the ad valorem general government taxation, as well as the ad valorem taxation for the recreation services. So none of the parcel taxes are included in that, and the water user fees are not included in that as well. So on your tax bill, what you pay to the regional district is sort of totaled there at the bottom. And that's over the course of the year. And that does include both your water parcel fees and your user fees. So.
Okay. Mayor Seegers, would you like to add anything? Or
I'm good. He's doing a great job.
he's doing a fantastic job.
Not bad for no notes.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next? So right now is the information session today. And as I said, we have round 2 budget tomorrow and Friday, and then our budget adoption at the end of March of 2021. And once again, if you'd like more information on and more detailed analysis on or detailed explanations on any of the projects that we're looking at, you can find that through scrd.ca/budget. So I will, I can either stop sharing my screen. It's easy for us to go back into it if you want me to go back to a slide, or I can keep my screen up for right now if any of your counselors or staff have any questions about any of the slides at this time. It's up to you, Mayor, your worship.
Right. Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor McLean.
I think I know the answer to this one, but just to be clear for everyone watching at home, the tax rate increases are still preliminary. There are significant decisions to be made in round 2 that could significantly change that, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'll mention one that actually came to us just in the last 2 weeks, I think, was around the sprinkler system at the Sechelt Aquatic Center. So it was found that there's microbes or microbiological things or whatever growing in the pipes, and it's actually starting to create little holes in some of them, which is reducing pressure. So we're looking at what has to happen. Is it just pieces of it have to be replaced? Does the whole thing have to be replaced? I think the number was 170,000, somewhere in there, ballpark. So that's something that's coming to us tomorrow.
Yeah.
At the budget.
180,700.
80. Okay. That was close.
I've got your document open, so.
Okay, good.
Perfect. And I have the spreadsheets for tomorrow and Friday up in front of me right now. So we can always bring up, if there's any of those questions about what is coming up, we've got those in front of us. And yes, Councillor McLean, you're correct. This is purely after round 1. We do have a number of, we have 2 full days scheduled to review all of these other upcoming concerns as well.
Councillor Lamb.
I guess I'm very interested that recreation takes up so much of the budget. And has the board looked at, offering, I shouldn't say offering, but maybe asking the community, what the community would like, or even asking the community if the community would take over different things, like maybe it's trails where the SCRD, I know they're out there, cutting lawns and parks and stuff like that, or some of the facilities that we have. We live in such a spectacular place when there's so many things for nature here that can give us, all the recreation we need. And we have this huge piece of our budget that gets tied up in recreation. So that's just a comment.
Mhm.
May I respond, Mayor?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lamb. And I hear the concerns, and that is it is something that we're talking about as well, especially, also looking at the cost per facility, recreation facility to run too. So we have some reports that'll be coming up later this year on the individual costs, like breaking out the individual costs of per recreation facility, as well as looking at the end of life cycle for a couple of the older facilities too. So there's some more information coming up about recreation. In regards to the percentage of our budget, it's actually very similar to any other local government that would be running recreation as well. So if you were looking at another city or town across the country, and they're running their recreation program, chances are it's about the same percentage as well. And I know it is a huge chunk, because in order to make recreation and have a healthy community and support that, it does need to be subsidized by taxation, unless you find other creative ways of helping fund it. They're expensive facilities to run and to operate and maintain.
And for the longest time, even up until this year, we really don't know per facility what it costs to run. What does the Sechelt Aquatic Center cost to run in a year? We don't really know that. By the time you look at not only the staff that are in the facility, but the staff that are maintaining it, that travel between facilities, we've got any of the management teams, programming, insurance costs. We don't really have that breakdown on a per facility basis. And I noticed a couple of the directors are in the attendee list, and I know that at least one of them has sort of referred to recreation as a bit of a black hole or black box, where the money just sort of goes in and services come out. Mm-hmm. And that's something that members of the board have been very concerned about, because you can't compare the Sechelt Aquatic Center with the Gibson's pool, because you don't know what each visit costs, and you don't know what each visit brings in revenue in relation to each other.
And it's important to note that a number of years ago, we were doing it per facility. However, when it was about the time of the MyPass coming in to make things more seamless for our residents to go from facility to facility, that everything kind of was more or less lumped into. So it was an even cost. So if you had the MyPass, you could go to any one of the facilities, and the cost was the same. So we are looking at it. There is a report coming back later this year at the end of Q2. So we're looking around July for that. We'll have that. We'll make sure we flag that for your council. And the same question did come up last night at the town of Gibson's as well. It's a concern for not just for the rural areas, but for the municipalities as well.
One thing I did actually want to real quickly add in, Councillor Lamb, you mentioned, trails and parks and what have you. The district of Sechelt doesn't contribute to the parks function at the regional district. So that 43% of what we send to the regional district that goes to recreation services is going to the recreation facilities. The rural areas only pay into the parks function.
And I just want to give you a dollar amount. If we went back to that tax notice that we looked at, on that tax notice for this $750,000 house, right? Value $750,000. For 2020, they would have paid $438.91 for the year for recreation, plus $112.54. So $551.45. That house would have paid for the year for recreation. So is that too much? Is that not enough? Is it, where does that fall? That's something that we really would like at the regional district. We'd like people to weigh in and let us know.
Mhm.
So totally on the same page. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. So Councillor Lamb mentioned one that may be too high. I'm going to mention one that may be too low, and that is regional planning. I think this is the first time I've seen it broken out into percentages and realized that only 1% of our Sechelt contribution goes towards regional planning. But the impact that regional planning could have on the entire Sunshine Coast is huge. I think we heard it on Monday at our emergency housing meeting, the need for collaboration and the need for working together on some of our largest issues. And a lot of that comes through our planning departments. So I really would like to see a continued focus on regional collaborative planning. And the actionable item there is, I'm wondering if you could provide an update on the regional growth strategy.
Yes, we can. Would you like to take that, Councillor Todd?
No, I think you should. You know more about the topic than I do. Yeah.
Okay, so there is money in the budget for the baseline research that needs to be done to move the regional growth strategy forward. So there's a lot of preliminary work that has to be done. Money is in the budget for that, so that we can move that project forward. There is a recognition, it's important.
And that really is the section that's in that pie chart for planning from the district to Sechelt's money, is that regional growth framework work that needs to be done this year.
And it's certainly, it's a key, oh my goodness, power keeps on going. It just flickered here, so I hope you can still hear me. Working collaboratively here across the coast is really important to us, Councillor McLean. And I would like to note, like some of our planning at the regional district is covered by user fees. Thank you, Director McMahon just sent a message just reminding me of that as well. But the regional planning piece, it is really important to all of us to work very collaboratively. And unfortunately, we were set up really good at the beginning of 2020, and then a pandemic kind of stalled a few things. So.
All right, there's a question in the Q&A. It says, when might we have water meters installed in Sechelt? I know that when I lived in South Surrey, they offered a one-time install amount $0, and our water costs reduced significantly every year. I want a water meter installed on my property. That's the question.
That's the question.
Yes.
So who would like to, Councillor Toth or Mayor Seekers, do you want me to answer that, or would you like to?
Councillor Toth, do you want to take it?
Not soon enough is my answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's what it.
Okay, so where are we at right now is we have set aside money in the budget at the regional district to do the AAP that needs to happen. Because of the borrowing that has to happen for that, we have to get elector approval. So when this budget gets passed, March 15th, we will have March 25th, right. There will be money in the budget to do that AAP. That was actually passed in round 1, so, and has been incorporated at this point. Once we have approval, if we get that from the electors, then we can go ahead and start putting in water meters.
Mm-hmm.
So Larry, it's on our list to move forward this year. So thank you for the question.
And we're all very keenly interested to see it go forward, as the rest of the Sunshine Coast already does have them.
I just want to mention one of the other things that we're investing money in at the regional district this year is on the software, so that because part of what we need to do is collect information and be able to feed information back to people and do the calculations around how much should you pay, how much do you pay, Are we collecting enough? You know, all of that type of information. So we're actually investing in software to set that process up so that when and if these come on board, we will be able to provide that information to everyone up and down the coast.
So similar to when you think about your BC Hydro bill, when you can track your usage, you can, we're hopeful. We're not sure on the exact level of user friendliness, I'll use that as a term, that it will be. But right now, if for anyone that is already on a water meter within the rural areas, they can request their data on a monthly basis and track their water there. So the rural directors actually, you know, compare from time to time on their water usage. So it's interesting to see that.
All right, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm just going to continue the thread on water meters. So I'm just wondering if you could provide a little more detail about why we're going for an AAP, given that one failed a couple years ago, and combined with the fact that given that regional water is a regional service, I understand that the AAP would be open to all residents on the Chapman system, including everyone there also pays for it. Whereas I think there's that misunderstanding that it is just Sechelt. It is everyone on the Chapman system. So would it not be more fair to go to a referendum, given that it has failed and that it is more widespread than just Sechelt?
I'd have to say that when we first did the referendum, or sorry, the AAP, there was a belief on the Sunshine Coast that not much was happening with regards to water. You know, finding additional water supplies, you know, ensuring that we're putting that side of our house in order. Since then, we've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of communication around the work that we've been doing. We've been finding extra sources of water. We've been bringing those sources on board. And I think the conversation in the community has shifted, but in the money that we've set aside, we have set aside money to do an AAP. Should that AAP fail, we have also set aside money to be able to do a referendum.
So just to add on to that, you know, the discussion was had sort of AAP or referendum, and the costs to hold a referendum during a pandemic are exponentially more expensive than being able to hold a referendum during normal times. And so the AAP is a lot more of an economical option. Yeah, as was mentioned, we can still bring forward a referendum fairly quickly should it become the way we need to go.
There's definitely a cost, a financial cost. There's also a staff capacity because it takes a lot more time and staff support in order to run a referendum than it does because essentially it's an election, right? So you're going through almost that same process as an election, whereas the AAP is a way of testing the waters, as you know, as you've just been through an AAP, or you're just awaiting the results of your AAP for your operations center. So, and we saw this also with the Church Road Wellfield AAP that we had last year to go forward with that loan. It is a good way to test the waters, and if you do break that 10% threshold, we do have the option of going to the referendum, but we need to move forward on this project while being cognizant of costs and staff time.
All right, any other questions from council or the public?
How can the public ask a question?
They
What do
can
they
raise
have
their
to
hand.
do?
They can go into the Q&A. There's a Q&A available to them. Jennifer, can they raise their hands? I'm not sure if they have that option.
Yes, I believe *9 will allow you to raise your hand.
If you're on a phone.
If
Yeah.
you're on a phone, my
Anybody who's
apologies.
connected through Zoom can raise their hand.
We have a question in the, oh, you can raise a hand. You can raise your hand, and so Tracy tried it out for us and then she put it down again. So I'm assuming she doesn't have a question. She just wanted to see if it worked. So you can raise your hand in the gallery if you have a question, or type it in the Q&A. And council, any other questions for you? All right. No further questions?
Just got
Councillor
one.
McLean,
Yep.
okay.
I don't think it's been discussed in round 1, but looking forward towards round 2. What is approach to the strategic initiatives department that was proposed last year?
Well, I'm going to put that over to my CAO about the Strategic Initiatives Department. If I can, if there is a, there he is. CAO McKinley, Councillor McLean had a question about the Strategic Initiatives Department that we proposed last year.
I believe we have, and I'll probably have to do some follow-up to give you an exact update, but we do have a strategic initiatives manager in place. Mia Edbrook started with us a short time ago, excuse me, and is getting her feet underneath her. So I'll be able to give a bit of a better update on that in the near future, but it's nice to see the first domino falling into place, as it were.
And we're excited, yeah, we're excited about that department because it'll really help to move some of these long-term visioning pieces forward and take them off of the sides of desks and actually put them on someone's desk front and center and move, because we've all seen what happens when you, we all know how easy it is to get just embroiled in the regular day-to-day running and not looking too much farther ahead. And we know what kind of situation that's gotten us into here financially, where we haven't had enough forward movement on these long-term initiatives. Regional growth strategy, I'm going to just use as one that's sitting that we all want to do and we all want to see and we all know we need, but we're, you know, we haven't really been able to move forward to it because we haven't had staff capacity. So we're really excited about this, and we're looking forward to actually meeting our new manager soon too.
Yes, and some of the other positions were deferred from last year, but we'll be filling some of the other ones this year as well. They've been approved, excuse me, for 2021.
All right, there's another question in the chat. It says, or in the Q&A, it says it may be difficult to analyze, but could more recreation activities not be user pay, such as ball fields, soccer fields, etc.?
So not user pay, or
Yeah,
to be,
could they be user pay? I think is what they're looking for.
user pay?
Yes.
Well, if you're booking a field, I believe it's a user pay system now. So, but there's, I would have to defer to staff on exactly how that looks operationally.
The simple answer is yes. Many of these things could be user pay. Some of these things we have user fees for, some we do not yet. And we would have to do some further analysis and come forward with recommendations if we wanted to see more user pay features.
Okay, there's another question.
I'm just going to add.
Go ahead.
To that a
Yeah,
little
go
bit.
ahead. I'm just looking at another question.
The district of Sechelt doesn't participate in that parks function. So like we also don't participate with the community halls and things like that. But I think the community halls are actually a really good example of a function that is user pay, works well as user pay. But for the moment, it doesn't matter what hall you're renting. You know, if you're a nonprofit, you pay one rate. If you're private, you pay a different rate. But that rate is the same regardless of which facility you're renting. And I know with this talk about Cooper's Green Hall replacement, there is some conversation about, we need to change fees, because if you're renting Grantham's Hall, you shouldn't be paying the same amount as if you're renting Cooper's Green Hall, for example. So there certainly is some ability within the system to look at expanded user pay options.
Okay, there's a question in the YouTube chat that says, how do we not know the costs of a facility that we run? I think they're talking about recreation in here. And I think we used to, okay? So we used to know that. And then when the SCRD, the regional district, implemented the one pass where you could get a pass to use a recreation facility and could be used at any facility. As part of that, it was difficult to determine revenues and expenses that were related with those revenues, because you could purchase it in Sechelt but use it at Pender Harbor or in Gibson's. So part of what we're doing right now is we're going back to look at how can we actually break that out and still maintain the one pass. So that's information we've asked for. Staff are working on that behind the scenes, and then we're bringing that forward. What do they say, this fall sometime-ish?
July, this, yeah, after Q2,
Okay.
just at the end of Q2.
All right. Any other questions?
Are you going
All
to
right.
release me already?
Yes, I think we're going to release you. So how can people get questions in to the SCRD? They can send them to board at SCRD. They could send them to individual directors.
Yes, or our general information line, info@scrd.ca, which is our general inquiry line, and then it gets filtered through there to the appropriate departments. And then of course, you can contact any one of the directors, and if we don't have the answer immediately for you, we will follow up.
And the individual directors can be reached at firstname.lastname@scrd.ca. So
Yes.
it's an easy to follow format for people.
Right. All right.
Question for Jennifer, perhaps. Are we going to post this presentation on our website anywhere? I suppose
It's
we should
actually being posted right now live on YouTube. So it will be on our YouTube channel. So anybody who wants to watch will have access there. Is that correct, Jennifer?
To echo the mayor, yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right. I'd like to see a motion to receive this presentation. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Chair Pratt.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you to staff, Dean and Tina and Aiden. All right. Good night. See you tomorrow.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely meeting. We'll see you in the next 2 days.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to our agenda to item 4.1. This is a proclamation. This is Lymphedema Awareness Day, March 6, 2021. So whereas lymphedema is an incurable condition affecting more than 1 million Canadians, including 30 to 40% of all cancer survivors with disfigurement, disabilities, discomfort, and distress, and whereas many British Columbians are living with lymphedema, an accumulation of lymphatic fluid that causes chronic swelling in the arms, legs, or other areas of the body, affecting men, women, and children, and causing a severe financial, physical, and psychological impact on the lives of patients. And whereas there is a desperate need to raise the level of knowledge about lymphedema within the medical community for timely diagnosis and management, so people no longer go untreated due to lack of knowledge about treatment, and whereas the lack of focus on this condition has resulted in inadequate education and a lack of effective clinical or surgical treatment, plus a drastic shortage of trained medical professionals, and whereas the mandate of the BC Lymphedema Association is to bring attention to this distressing disease and to promote healthy and hopeful living with lymphedema through education, awareness, advocacy, and support for all people in British Columbia living with lymphedema and for their families and caregivers. Now, therefore, I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that March 6, 2020 shall be known as Lymphedema Awareness Day in the District of Sechelt. And we were to have Christine here with us. There she is. Christine, I'm going to bring you in. Welcome, Christine. You can turn on your video and unmute yourself.
Good. Well, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to, and also for taking this time to draw attention to the situation of what it's like to be living with lymphedema. And as you've heard in the proclamation, there are a lot of Canadians living that way. And in BC at the present time, there is no healthcare funding. So what we want to draw attention to this year particularly is that this is the 15th anniversary of the BC Lymphedema Volunteer Association. And that we are basically have been the only resource for a person who is suddenly diagnosed with lymphedema or has no idea why they have this chronic swelling. We are the resource where they come to find out who to go to, what to do, how to get some treatment, and generally how to manage their life. So it's a big year for us, 15th anniversary. And for the first time ever, we're having the BC Legislature building lit up on Friday night and Saturday night in our colors. This green and the blue is one of our colors. And we are having special recognition of the founding members that sat around in Delbrook Community Center in North Van and discussed, what could they do? It was a patient, one doctor. There's still only one doctor in the province that is specializing in lymphedema. And so this is quite a significant year for us, and we continually advocate for healthcare funding. And this year we are putting a big push on that, and that's our main goal this year, to go for the government. But of course, we keep getting upstage with other serious health issues. So thank you for this opportunity. And I did want to draw attention to the fact that in the Coast Reporter this weekend, there will be a feature article about lymphedema. And also to let you know that a pool in any community is a saving grace for people with us, because the pressure of water on the limbs has a significant beneficial effect, therapeutic effect for shifting lymph fluid. So without pools, we have several members on the coast who have whole body lymphedema or leg lymphedema, and the pool is an absolutely essential part of their management. So I was glad to hear the conversation about keeping the costs for being able to attend the pool reasonable. Thank you very much for this chance.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
All right, we will move to item 5.1. This is the minutes of the 4 p.m. Regular council meeting of February 10th, and these are for adoption. Look for a motion to adopt. Moved. Second. All in favor? Thank you. 5.2, minutes of the 5:30 special council meeting of February 11th. And this is for adoption. Moved. Seconded. All in favor?
1 sec.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to do an amendment. Under
Okay.
section 2, it said the meeting recessed at 3:31 p.m. I believe that should be 5:31.
Okay, and then it reconvened. This meeting recessed at 3:31 to go into closed.
Yeah, the meeting started at 5:30, so we went back in time
Okay,
to reset.
right, so 5:30. Okay, so there's an error on there.
Yeah, so amend
Thank
that
you.
to read 5:31.
Okay, so motion to adopt the agenda as amended, or the minutes as amended, where number 2 indicates 5:31 p.m. to go into closed portion. All right, so that's moved, seconded. Any other changes? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on to 5.3. This is the minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, February 7th. So first, any amendments to these minutes? Councilor McLean didn't find anything, okay. So I'd look for a motion to adopt these minutes as presented. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from any of these minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to number 7. 7.1 is Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of February 10th, and this is for receipt and endorsement. Any errors or omissions? All right, I'd look for a motion to receive and endorse. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 7.2, minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Wednesday, February 24th. Any errors or omissions in these? Okay, look for a motion to receive and endorse. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So moving on, we have bylaws. So item 8.1A, this is a rezoning application for 4465 Sunshine Coast Highway, Habitat for Humanity, zoning amendment bylaw number 25-310, 2021. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And is it Mr. Kowitz?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll briefly speak to this application. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for this tonight. I believe all the information you need is in the staff report. I will summarize where we're at now. This is the rezoning application for Habitat for Humanity at the Sunshine Coast Village, located in Wilson Creek, Sunshine Coast Highway. First reading was given on January 20th, and subsequently the application was referred to agencies and stakeholders. The APC also reviewed the application at its January 5th meeting, where a motion of support was granted and support was recommended for council. No significant concerns have so far been raised by stakeholders that were engaged, technical agencies, and relating with servicing the property. At this point, also staff are recommending that council consider waiving the public hearing, as this project is consistent with the official community plan and is in the interest of the community. Neighborhood notification and advertising would still occur as is required by legislation, and members of the public would still have an opportunity to comment on the application prior to the scheduling of third reading in lieu of holding a public hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? All right, seeing no questions, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I will move recommendation 2, that council give second reading to zoning amendment bylaw 25-310, 2021, Habitat for Humanity. And recommendation 3, that council waive the public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw 25-310, 2021, Habitat for Humanity in accordance with section 4642 and 467 of the Local Government Act.
And that's been seconded. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. So let's move to page 54, item 8.1B. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 25-310, 2021, Habitat for Humanity, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25, 1987. And I'd look for someone to move second reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So just a question for you before you disappear on us here. So on the bylaw, it actually says public hearing held this. So does that line actually get changed then in the bylaw, that public hearing, it was waived by council?
Yes, that would note that the public hearing was waived.
Perfect, thank you.
It's merely an adoption schedule, which can and will be changed as we proceed through, and we would just simply say waived rather than held.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, item 8.2A. This is rezoning application for 5546 Inlet Avenue, Legion number 140, zoning amendment bylaw number 25-309, 2020. This is on page 56. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Back over to planner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So likewise, I don't have a PowerPoint for this one, but I'll speak to it briefly to summarize. This is a rezoning application for the Legion for their new property on Inlet Avenue. And it's a rezoning to permit neighborhood pub as a site-specific use. It was given first reading on December 16th and subsequently sent for referral to agencies and stakeholders. Again, the APC reviewed the application at its January 5th meeting supported the rezoning application and also provided some preliminary comments related to the parking variance associated with the addition to the building. The application was also referred to the school district, and the board there discussed the application at its committee meeting on January 26th. And it was discussed support for the application. They noted the Legion's ongoing support for school-based Remembrance Day activities, and no further comments were provided beyond that. Since the first time the application was considered by council, the applicants have reduced the scale of the proposed addition from 181 square meters originally down to 112 square meters. And this has resulted in an additional potential off-street parking space. So the degree of parking reduction would be lessened. That will be considered at a future date once the rezoning process is complete and final development permit plans are presented to council. So at this time, staff recommend that second reading be given and that a public hearing be scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps you don't have an answer for this, Mr. Koberwitz. I was just wondering, with regards to that revision to the design, page 58 in our agenda package, what was the justification for decreasing the size of the addition that they were looking at? Given that they are in a substantially larger facility now, I'm kind of surprised that they're looking to reduce the addition that they were looking to do. Thank you.
I would note that a representative of the applicant is in the gallery tonight. They may be able to better answer this question, but my understanding is that it was intended to reduce the financial impact of the addition itself, and in some ways fits better with the parking requirements on the property as well.
Councillor Toth, did you want to hear from the applicant?
If they're willing to share, yes. I mean, ultimately, it's a business decision on their part, so really, it's not a big deal to me either way. But yeah, if they're willing to share, I would be interested in hearing.
All right, Mr. Hamblin, go ahead.
Yeah, as you all know, the Legion is a nonprofit organization, and we have limited funds to deal with to build our new building. And one of the decisions to reduce the size of the footprint was the cost of a sprinkler system. So if we reduce the size of the building to less than 50% of the existing space, we would save ourselves about $34,000 in sprinkler system and have an SCRD bring a 4-inch water main to the building.
All right.
So that was the reason for the change in size of the building.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLean.
Sounds good.
Any other questions from council? All right, we have some recommendations on page 56. What would you like to do? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'll move recommendation 2 that council gives second reading to the zoning amendment bylaw number 25-309 2020 Legion, and recommendation 3 that council authorize staff to schedule a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 25-309 2020 Legion.
Thank you. Seconded. All right. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on, third reading. This is for third reading, and this is sorry, I went right by it. Looking at page 74. I'm too far. Nope, I'm not far enough. There we go. 8.3a, rezoning application for 5547 Trail Avenue City State Consulting. Zoning amendment bylaw number 25-308 2020. So motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Mr. Korowitz.
Thank you.
Pardon me.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't. You had not passed or acknowledged the resolution for the zoning bylaw.
So you're talking about 8.2b?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving back to 8.2b on page 72. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 25-309 2020 Legion number 140, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25 1987. I look for someone to move second reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. All right, thank you for keeping me on track. Awesome. Next, moving on to 8.3A. Again, rezoning application for 5547 Trail Avenue City State Consulting, zoning amendment bylaw number 25-308-2020. And I look for someone to move receipt. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So again, this is a rezoning application for the property at 5547 Trail Avenue to permit a small lot subdivision. Second reading was given on December 16th, and subsequently a public hearing was held on February 16th. 9 people in total attended the hearing, but only the applicant spoke to the application. We also received 2 letters in support, and 7 letters opposed to the application were received. 2 letters also were received just seeking clarifications and didn't express either support or opposition. A number of specific questions were raised through the process, and staff have provided some technical clarifications in the staff report in regards to those issues. And at this time, staff are recommending third reading, and that we proceed with securing the recommended conditions in regards to the amenities of the laneway paving, and send the bylaw to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor McLean.
I'll jump in with a comment. I want to highlight one of the comments that somebody provided in the public hearing. So quoting them, I think that the current zoning of Starfish Lane for lane housing is a better way to get affordable housing into the core area. So that's the end of the quote. This development is not a one-off. It does only apply to one property right now, but the intent is to create a zone for the village infill, residential infill area. We need to consider the impact of this zoning change on Mermaid, Dolphin, Spindrift, Pebble Crescent, the entire village infill area. Do we really want to enable small lots on all of these streets? A small lot subdivision could be considered an instant cash payout for property owner. The value of 2 small lots is inherently higher than 1 larger lot. So why would anyone want to build a laneway house when they can receive cash for subdividing their land and selling half the lot? To me, this proposal boils down to a question of whether we want to build rental housing or create another single family home. A laneway house is a rental house by its nature. So I'd like to encourage council today to vote for rental housing, not more single family homes.
Okay, any other councillors?
Oh, where am I?
Councillor Lamb?
Oh, yeah. I got a couple of questions. One of them is we're going to have to dig up the road, Trail Avenue to hook up to the sewer. So if they do a laneway house, do we have to do that also or not?
There would most likely, because of the configuration of the property, because of the existing house at the front of the lot, there would need to be a sewer connection at the rear, but that's something we would have to look at. But we don't anticipate that the actual pavement surface of Trail Avenue would be impacted by a sewer connection, as the sewer line is more running beneath the sidewalk area. So the tie-in might disturb some of the concrete, but it's not anticipated to disturb the paved surface.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions. So
go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So if it's a small lot subdivision, what are the fees that are imposed? Are there DCCs on this like a normal subdivision? And then they're off sites we're asking them to pave the back alley there. So is there
That's right. And DCCs would be as any other single family lot. And those would be the same DCCs that would be charged on a laneway home as well.
Right, okay. Since Sechelt, okay. And then if this is if you are going to have a home-based business out of this operation, would that be your permanent residence, or would you have to, I mean, do you have to live there to have a home-based business, or can it be a big, one that you come and go to? Like if you had a residence in Vancouver and you had a place here, can that be a home-based business, being that's not your home base?
The home-based business or home occupation, as it is in the zoning bylaw, is a secondary permitted use to residential use of the property. So the property would primarily need to be used for residential purposes to qualify for the home occupation uses. And that would be distinctly different than a full-time commercial use as you'd have in the commercial areas.
Okay.
Is that all your questions, Councillor Lamb?
That's good for now, thanks.
Okay, well, we'll come back to you. I have a question, because I know one of the concerns that's coming up in the downtown core is that by moving this forward, it sets a precedent, and it could be anywhere in the downtown core. But my understanding is that staff are looking at this as basically the ends of lots or of blocks, so that it would be where it backs onto an alley and a side street, or a street on each side, that's where this would most likely be, at this point, incorporated if somebody came forward and requested to go through the rezoning process. It's not something that would be automatic. Is that correct?
That's right. So any future application would be subject to the rezoning process. That means a full analysis by staff as to the feasibility of the project, the location characteristics and whatnot. It's more well suited for end of block because generally the configuration of the home would place it more towards the front or more towards the rear of the property, enabling you to subdivide without having to tear down a building necessarily. That doesn't preclude someone from applying for a mid-block subdivision where you might end up with a narrow lot, still with rear lane access, front road access. It would just be a narrower lot down to the 9 meters that has been included in the bylaw at this point. But again, as far as precedent, while the precedent is certainly established in the official community plan that small lot subdivisions are compatible with roads that have rear lane access in the village infill area, it would still be at the discretion of council and with taking into account planning advice and looking if it would be feasible in any particular location.
Thank you.
I would just add that in municipalities that have implemented this type of regulation, there hasn't been evidence that there's been wholesale subdivision, tearing down of homes, or a large kind of scale adoption of small lot subdivision.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I go back and forth with this. I can certainly see Councillor McLean's point. Reading from our own OCP, got it open right here. Village residential infill areas have rear lane access and are suitable for infill development, housing forms such as duplexes, carriage homes, laneway cottages, or small lot housing. As was noted in the staff report, this isn't something that needs an OCP change. This is something that already fits within our OCP. Yes, the OCP is old. Yes, it needs updating, but certainly we're going to be looking at more of these sort of options going forward. Just because a lot has been subdivided doesn't mean it can't still be rental housing. There's plenty of single family homes in our community that are rental housing. I don't see that this would necessarily be any different. Likewise, because short-term rentals are prohibited from this small lot subdivision, you could otherwise build a laneway home and rent it out on Airbnb. So I think that this is better at providing housing options than requiring single lot with the laneway house. Thank you.
Thank you. go back to Sven.
I would just want to provide some further information and make a note, just because short-term rental was noted, that we've specifically excluded short-term rental as a permitted use in this zone for some of those exact reasons. And also note that with a small lot, the single-family dwelling would still be authorized to have a suite within that home. So there would still be a rental space potentially created with a single-family home.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor Scott.
So when you say the short-term rental is precluded, does that count for the lot that it's divided from? So both of those properties are precluded from being Airbnb?
The property is currently zoned R2A, and short-term rental is not a listed use in that zone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb, any further questions?
Yeah, one of them is just a comment, but a lot of the houses or a lot of the properties in that area, people built their houses in the middle of the properties, and so they are not, you'd have to tear the house down to subdivide them or to do that. And then my other question just got answered, so I'm comfortable. Thank you.
All right. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I just heard a comment earlier about housing diversity. It's just when we subdivide, we're creating another single family home. Most of Sechelt is single family ownership homes. Yes, they could be rented out. Yes, they could have suites, but that is exactly the same as 95+% of the homes that we already have in Sechelt. We have an opportunity to create a rental house here. A laneway house is by definition a rental house or to family. It is a more diverse housing form. It is what we should be trying to create. We had a tremendous R2A zone that we created a year and a half ago. This council created this zone, and we didn't consider small lot subdivisions at that time. So the only reason we are considering small lot subdivisions now is because the applicant has asked. I think good planning practice starts with a conceptual idea. We had a conceptual idea in the old R2A zone, and we can create exemptions for one lot at a time, depending on the exact site specifications. But just because we're changing the entire zone when we do this property, I get the comments about creating a CD zone. That's not appropriate. But what may be more appropriate is creating a site-specific addition to this R2A zone, because this is not how I want to plan the town, is by one person applying and then setting the example, because we want this R2A zone to expand. And if we amend it today, then that is what the R2A zone is. The old one was good. It was passed by us. It is a good bylaw that should remain.
So Councillor McLean, to follow up on that, what changes would you like to see in the zone here? I mean, there are a few changes that have come forward via staff and via the applicant.
My ideal case would be to deny this application and leave it as the R2A. I'm not ready to make that motion yet. I have one more argument. I will make that argument and I'll move that. But if that is not the case, then it should be a site-specific change. It should not be across the entire R2A zone. I know it's only one property right now, but I don't want to set the precedent of saying this is a zone that other people can use. If we have a zone, it's a template. So this template should apply to this one property. The old template was good, that we can expand to the rest of the downtown and residential infill area.
Thank you. I saw Director Allen unmuted himself there for a second. Did you want to speak to this?
Well, thank you, Mayor Seeger. Certainly happy to permit council to continue talking it out. I don't necessarily want to jump in the middle and be divisive here. So right now it would apply to the R2A zone, this lot size. Taking a step back and applying it to this property only would then be a change of the bylaw and an additional public hearing, so we could be abundantly clear it's only on that property. The housing needs report implementation, which is up next on the agenda, so at risk of jumping ahead, that does talk about small lot subdivision for the value of both rental and ownership housing, right? So it's a little bit in the hands of the property owner in that regard, right? And that's the challenge that I find, or that we find as planners, whereupon the individual property owner is being relied upon to provide rental or affordable housing rather than senior levels of government, right? So it creates this real problem where municipalities are relying upon individual owners to make that decision on behalf of the community. So it's a challenge, and I accept and acknowledge that challenge. Our documentation would, be it OCP or housing needs report, permit this. And I think ultimately what council needs to wrestle with is this everywhere in the R2A zone, which still at present only applies to the one property, or specifically to this property only. I will give a nod to, we are drafting zones in bylaw 580 that would contain both those possibilities: a downtown zone with multiple dwelling units and a separate zone which could potentially be acquired through a rezoning application that could potentially allow small lot subdivisions. So we wouldn't apply that to properties until they made their application, if that makes sense. Hope I'm not confusing the matter any further, and I will remute myself on that note.
All right, council, any further questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I just have one more point regarding subdivision. I'm going to pull another comment from the public hearing. So I quote, perhaps the district should look at amending the OCP as a first step to allow lots in this area close to downtown to be rezoned multifamily before cutting them up into tiny single parcels. So end quote. Yeah, the OCP has provision for small lots and laneway houses in this area. But are small lots the best option for future development beyond the scope of the OCP, which is 15 to 20 years? I think the future of the village resident infill area has to be larger forms of housing, including townhouses and low-rise apartments. By subdividing a bunch of the properties, we're limiting the option for this form of housing. What was once a 3-lot consolidation now becomes a 6-lot consolidation if these become subdivided. The more players you get in a land consolidation, the harder it is and the more it drives up cost. This change has a lot of long-lasting implications for the village residential infill area. We can add the same number of units to our housing supply with laneway houses as subdividing. The R2 zone A, or the R2A zone, is sufficient for adding housing in the village infill area. So why are we going to limit the options for future development 20, 25, 30 years down the road by allowing subdivision now? Laneway housing is a great option that I believe a lot of people in this community support. A lot of the comments in the public hearing supported it. And through my conversations with council, a lot of councillors have indicated support for laneway housing. So we should be doing everything we can to create laneway housing. And that is not also allowing small lot subdivisions on the few lots in all of Sechelt that are suitable for laneway houses.
All right, council. Councillor Lamb, do you have further comments?
No, I'm good. That was excellent, Matt.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Still not sure how I'm going to vote on this, how I want to move this forward. I'm still listening, still trying to understand sort of Councillor McLean's perspective there. But one thing did sort of twig for me, and that's if we're looking to avoid subdividing parcels because someday we may want to put townhouses or apartments or condos or whatever there, then we need to look at our entire geographical area as to whether we're going to support subdivision at all. Because a lot that has, 5 acres now that could be turned into 15 or 20 homes could be covered in condos or townhouses or rental apartments. We just don't have that. I guess the perspective is how far out do you look for your visioning, your planning? You know, I have family friends who've had property in Vancouver, who've been part of an entire street long consolidation. It's certainly doable. Whether it's 5 owners or 50 owners, you know, if a developer can make the numbers work, they can make the numbers work. And you do see developments where you get one person in the middle that didn't want to sell, and the developer has to work around that for sure. But I think in the scope of the OCP that we have in place right now, I think this subdivision makes sense.
All right, any other questions or comments from council? All right, so there are some recommendations on page 74. What would you like to do? Councillor McLean.
Gave you guys a chance to jump in before me.
I knew this was going to happen. Go ahead.
I will move that the zoning application be denied.
All right, is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded by Councillor Lamb and seconded by Councillor Toth. All right, any further questions or comments? Councillor Toth.
Councillor Lamb beat me to seconding it. I was willing to second it to put it on the floor for discussion. Just think I'm going to vote against it though. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? So is a recommendation on the floor that this zoning application, rezoning application for 5547 Trail Avenue be denied? All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. That's been defeated. Councillor McLean?
I have another alternative motion. This motion is that council direct staff to revise the bylaw for city state to be a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, is there a seconder for that recommendation? Seconded, okay. Any questions or comments on the recommendation? All those in favor of the recommendation? Okay, all those, so let's do that again. All those in favor of the recommendation? Okay, so we've got 5 in favor of the recommendation. All those opposed? All right, so that motion is passed. So this is referred back to staff to revise the bylaw. And the recommendation basically, and bring that forward. I don't know how we proceed with this one now, because it's just specific to this. Because we have we have a zone 2A. And this was a revision to zone 2A. And we're saying we want the revision only for this property. So how do we proceed with this?
Thank you, Mayor Seegers. I think staff will probably need to ultimately take stock and reflect to ensure we make the right decision. And I'll explain. After a public hearing, we cannot make changes to use or density, right? So what we're saying here is that this bylaw applies only to a property. So neither the use nor density would appear to be changing. But what I think I want to analyze a little bit deeper is, does the use change if we say it applies only to a property? Right, and then we discussed a little bit, a parallel discussion last night at APC about use and its relation, right? It's complex. And so I am reluctant to say specifically right now what that means, whether or not another public hearing is required, but that certainly remains a possibility that we would give it an amended second reading, go back to public hearing. But it is something we'll want to take stock and discuss as a team.
Thank you. So there's nothing further at this point from us. We're not moving it to, we haven't given it second reading. We haven't, sorry, third reading. And we're not moving it to public hearing at this point. You're going to come back and advise us as to next steps.
Yeah, I think that would be most appropriate.
Thank you. All right.
In which case, we would prefer to have a confirmed motion of council's direction so that we can provide a staff report at next council meeting.
So you'd like a little more direction from us at this point?
Right, so to report back on next steps on how to address this on a site-specific basis only.
Yes. Okay, so Jennifer, the recommendation that was put forward, do you have that?
I was able to get that council direct staff to revise the bylaw for a site-specific bylaw amendment.
Is that sufficient, Director Allen?
Yes, it is sufficient. So we have direction now to amend the bylaw. But what we need to do is determine next steps. And if we believe next steps are in fact a public hearing, we can just follow up at the subsequent council meeting with suggestions on how to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to new business. This is item 9.1 that was added to the agenda. This is an endorsement of Sunshine Coast call to action. Councillor McLean. And just before you, while you're finding that, Jennifer, I emailed this to you.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, that just snuck up on me. So here is a notice of motion intended to be considered at the March 17th council meeting. That's our next council meeting. And the motion reads, whereas community members came together on March 1st to address the housing crisis and drafted the attached Sunshine Coast call to action, the motion is, be it resolved that council endorse the attached Sunshine Coast call to action. And this was sent out as a press release. It was sent out to councillors shortly before this meeting. But just for our viewers on YouTube, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here so you can have the text in advance of consideration next week. So I'm not going to read it out. It's 3 pages, 1, 2, and 3. And again, it's all on the District of Sechelt webpage already on the homepage under the press release that was released this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a motion, a notice of motion. Is there a seconder for that notice of motion? Don't need a notice, we just accept it. It's coming forward.
I mean, talk to corporate officer, but that's my understanding.
Perfect. Okay. Corporate officer, Joanne Frank.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, you simply need to receive Councillor McLean's report, and per council's procedure bylaw, it will automatically come forward on the March 17th agenda, regular council agenda, for council to consider at that time. And it will include the attachment that Councillor McLean referred to earlier.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
I move receipt.
Is there a seconder for receipt? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. I look forward to discussing that on the 17th. Moving on, item 10.1. This is the Housing Needs Report Implementation Framework. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And Director Allen.
Yes, as you can see, it was a very brief staff report, but important to put this out on public realm and include it on the agenda. So this implementation report is a follow-up to the Housing Needs Assessment and Housing Needs Report, which was endorsed by Council in the 4th quarter of 2020. And our regional working group, Town of Gibson's, District of Sechelt, and SCRD worked together with Urban Matters to provide a follow-up report, which provides some implementation ideas. And so this particular report provides implementation ideas for the Sunshine Coast broadly, as well as for Sechelt specifically. So it's given us some great ideas and great comparables to look at other municipalities, what they might be doing as we continue through drafting zoning bylaw 580. It gives us ideas when we receive individual zoning amendment application for housing or affordable housing opportunities. So there's a lot of great content in there. Please to share it on the agenda tonight for staff and to support the previous notice of motion. There's compatibility, of course, and how we provide housing range across the spectrum within Sechelt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, any questions or comments? So Director Allen, with this implementation plan, we've received it. Would you like us to indicate that we would like you to look at incorporating these, or is that something you're just going to take on as part of the housing needs assessment report that we all had signed on to?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are using it, but if council has a notion of support or direction for staff, then we'd welcome that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor McLean, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to speak briefly to this report. It's a very unique opportunity. There are some very concrete actions contained in this report, as well as examples from other communities that we can emulate. And this is something that most communities don't receive when they do a housing needs assessment. They receive the first report that we got back in the fall. So this is a little extra bonus that we got just for the Sunshine Coast. I believe due to COVID, and they couldn't do as much community consultation. So they kind of added this on in instead. So this is a huge opportunity for us. It's a really good start. And I hope we can take a lot of these recommendations and start working on them because there's just so much good in here.
All right. Anything else from council on this? Okay, so I'm going to make a recommendation that we refer that report to staff with a view to implementing the recommendations, or as many of the recommendations as can be done inside the district of Sechelt. And I understand it could take some time, but we're in a unique opportunity right now in that we're looking at our zoning bylaw. So a lot of these actually are pertaining to the zoning bylaw. So I will make that recommendation. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Councillor McLean, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I did get a little lost in your motion.
Okay.
I would like to see this come back to council. Given that there are a whole lot of recommendations, there needs to be some kind of prioritization process. So what I'd like to see is staff come up with priorities and which ones they're going to start working on first and report back to council.
Would you like to make that an amendment to the recommendation then?
Yes, but I saw Councillor Toth get in there, so I want to see if he maybe has something as well.
No, Councillor McLean, thank you for those comments. I haven't had a chance to do a real deep dive on this document yet. All I was going to say that I wasn't quite ready to support implementing as many of the recommendations as possible, sort of as a blanket wholesale statement. So,
okay.
Yeah. I don't know if Councillor McLean would like to make that amendment. I'll happily second it for him.
Yeah, do you have any words? I don't.
It would probably be something that we have staff review the recommendations and determine the timeline for implementation of the various, recommendations and timelines for implementation of them, so that they can look at, I mean, they might find that given what we're doing, some of them already they're working on, some of them would be coming, some of them would be down the road.
Timelines and priorities, perhaps?
Perfect. Timelines and priorities. Councillor McLean, would you like to make that amendment?
I would.
All right, seconded for the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. So we have an amended motion. And all those in favor of the amended motion? I won't have Jennifer read it back. I'm sure she'll get that. Thank you. All right, we are moving on to reports from councillors. So tell me who'd like to go first, and then I'll go around in order. Okay, Councillor Toth will go first, and then we'll go Councillor Lamb, Councillor McLean, Councillor Kuster, Councillor Scott, and then Councillor Rowe. Councillor Toth, over to you.
Thank you. I don't have anything to report other than last Sunday I attended a very, very small, I think there was 10 people there, ribbon cutting ceremony at Trail Bay Center for the new DC fast chargers. And that was sort of put on by the Sunshine Coast Electric Vehicle Association. So it was nice to do something in person. Really, that's all I've got to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
There we go. I attended the the WASAC meeting on Monday, and the big thing that came out of there is they wanted to make, getting information out to the taxpayers with regards to water meters and the water deficit. And they also asked for a comparison between what the cost of putting in water meters would be and the cost of developing a new water supply. So yeah, and then there was a bunch of recommendations at the SCRD, or I shouldn't say recommendations, but requests from the regional district for support for things like the study on the water supply in the North Pender and getting water from Saginaw. Focus on, and then they want, the regional district wanted direction whether to proceed or not to proceed, and there was 5 different things, and it was checking into the water in North Pender area, looking at getting water from Saginaw Lake, Marianne West Park, the well there, the Grey Creek, and the upgrades that they're looking at doing there, and the committee was supportive of all the projects that the regional district wanted to move ahead on. And one of the concerns that came up at the end of the meeting is, where does the money come from? It's not we got lots of water, but we got no money trees. So anyways, that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. As many of you know, there was an emergency housing meeting held on March 1st. The District of Sechelt did release a press release this morning with the details, but I just want to highlight a couple things. The meeting had 47 attendees, including people from all local governments and over 25 community leaders, each representing a not-for-profit organization. One of the key things that we did was we identified smaller working groups to address each of the actions identified in the plan. These working groups will continue to meet to address the action items, and a couple of the things that they're considering is a housing coordinator position, bringing stakeholders together to explore housing options and to catalyze and facilitate the conversion of underutilized land and housing stock into adequate and affordable mid and long-term rentals. So this group is going to, the working groups are going to continue to meet, and we're looking to have another larger meeting mid-April. I also had a private meeting with BC Ferries regarding summer service with Brian Anderson and Darren Gannett. So I'm thankful for BC Ferries to take a collaborative approach. However, I would like to see more of this done out in the open. We have not had a ferry advisory committee meeting or a formal one in over a year. So BC Ferries is working with us. I appreciate that, but we need to get that going out in the open a little bit more. And just a separate conversation about BC Ferries. Today they released that they have introduced fare flexibility for the major routes. So this means that some sailings will be cheaper than other sailings. This was not included in our route through advocacy of the Ferry Advisory Committee. This is an idea that has been proposed for many years now, so BC Ferries is finally implementing it. And the idea is they will try it on the major routes before they bring it to our route next. because we're considered a mini major. We're not quite a major, but we're also a major at the same time. So I just want to put it out there that depending on the success of that program, there will need to be a community conversation about how that unrolls for our Route 3 ferry. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kuster.
Okay. Matt or Councillor McLean pretty much discussed the emergency housing meeting, but I just want to say it was wonderful to be part of that and just to see the collaboration and everyone come together in what is identified as a time of crisis here with housing on the coast. And I want to commend Councillor McLean for, pulling this all together as with, obviously with the help of, Colin and Mayor Seegers, but I know it was a lot of work and you did a great job. So thank you very much. What did I do? APC meeting last night, not much to report, but it's always lively and great discussions with the new group of APC members. And I did attend the library board meeting. Just to note that they have their AGM coming up on March 27th, and nominations are due in on the 19th, I believe, March 19th. Yes, they can be picked up at the library, and they need to be sent to Leanne, Director Leanne Emery. What else can I tell you? And they're looking for a couple of new board members. And I did check on criteria and there's no specific criteria. And that's all I have to report. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Nothing to report on my end. I've been tied up with my other job to really tie into much else.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. Well, I was telling her worship before the meeting started that it's been 52 Wednesdays since we've all been together. And I just wanted to put that out there and say that I miss that. But I wanted to commend staff for the work that they've done during this last year. I certainly know many of the challenges that they face. So well done, and well done to all of us for continuing to be able to keep things moving. And I just want to say thank you to just wearing a different hat for a moment to the community. I know we're all done and done, feeling that we've had more than enough of that, but we're getting there. We're doing pretty well. And I just want to also say thank you to everybody who's been impacted by the losses of Seaside Center. And I don't know if I can understate the value that being able to use that facility to provide care to the community and keep them out of the emergency room. That's been invaluable. So second to that, again, to my cohorts on the, or my colleagues on the housing committee, well done, Matt and Mayor Seegers especially in pulling that together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing us continue the work through to fruition. Other than that, it's grant time. So we've started reviewing all the grants for the CIP program, and we'll be adjudicating the last Friday and the last Monday of March. We split it into 2 days because we're just like an entire day on Zoom is too much. So I'm looking forward to that. I had to step back, and Councillor McLean did that for me last year because it was in the middle of 52 weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to that. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to mention a few things. As you know, the COO for Vancouver Coastal Health left the position in January, I believe. And so we were not having regular calls with Vancouver Coastal Health, so getting our regular COVID updates. They have an interim VP who has stepped into the position And so those calls have started up again. So we are doing those calls every 2 weeks. And so they're wanting us to give feedback and input into the vaccine rollout, et cetera. So as information comes forward, so Councillor Rowe, I have a line in there. If you hear anything, I would really appreciate passing that on. I hear from the community as well. The call is with all of the regions in Vancouver Coastal Health. It also is all of the school districts. So initially it was just, mayors and chairs, etc., from the area. They've now included members of the school district so that everybody gets the information about with COVID updates. So that's really good. I attended the Iced Tea board meeting. And one of the programs that Iced Tea has come out with funding from the province is funding for economic development in regions for staffing. First time ever that the province has given the economic development groups money for staffing. So I made sure that our SCRD executive director was aware of that. They are having sessions for explaining about the program, etc. He signed up for one of them and I know he's going to be applying. We can apply as an individual community for $70,000 for one staff member or up to $125,000 as a region. So once he looks at more details about the program, he'll determine what he's going to be applying for our area. Last week, we had a teleconference call with Minister Osborne, Municipal Affairs, and Minister Malcolmson, Mental Health and Addictions from the province. And this is our monthly call. Minister Osborne will bring one of the other ministers along. And one of the things that we advocated for here on the Sunshine Coast was to let us know what the steps are to get a detox and treatment center here. Also in conversation with Chief Paul around that, because he's working with First Nations Health Authority. So we're looking at targeting that. What else put on here? Oh, on Wednesday, the 24th, I had the opportunity to speak at Rotary Sechelt. So I did up a speech on a week in the life of the mayor. So it was quite fun. I think they were really surprised at the depth and breadth of the groups that I meet with and that you are all involved with as well, and the topics that we are dealing with. What else have I got on here? I attended all of the budget sessions that were put on by the SCRD in all of the different areas. And as they indicated at the front of this, of our meeting here, this is the first year that the directors stepped up and basically owned the budget. This is our budget. We're the ones, staff come forward with recommendations, but it's we who deliberate them and pass them and actually pass the budget. So it's been really interesting. I think I know that staff have indicated that they're really pleased with the level of knowledge that the directors have of the budget. And I know Tina's really happy that she doesn't have to be the one front and center in explaining it anymore. We've had 2 meetings now with the construction industry. So there's a number of long-term builders on the Sunshine Coast that have come together. The regional district is spearheading the meetings, but it's the CAOs and the planners from each of the municipalities. And we're looking at how can they better understand our processes, and how can we better understand their processes and their pressures, so that we can together look at putting in changes on each side so that it goes smoother for that industry. There's a recognition that they do contribute a lot to the Sunshine Coast with not only the construction, but also all of the number of staff and sub-trades, etc., that work with them. What else have I got here? I think that's, one final conversation. Today, I was in a meeting with Chair Pratt and Mayor Beamish from Gibson's in a conversation with Capilano University around City Studio. So City Studio is something that they are doing and other universities are doing in Vancouver. And Vancouver is now in their 3rd or 4th year in the program. And the Capilano University is having a conversation with Squamish, the city of Squamish, and they are coming to work with us around looking at how can they implement something like this on a region. Basically what it is our staff would identify areas that we could set up projects or have areas that they would like the college students or the university students to take on as projects. There would be an initial brainstorming, kind of figuring out what kinds of projects there would be. Then there is a little bit of a cost because we would help fund the coordinator for that. The coordinator works with the teachers in the university and the students. So it'll be almost like a practicum of something around what we would come up as the ideas. We asked about staff involvement. We asked about cost. We asked about all that information. They are going to be putting a package together. We'll be bringing that to our council, potentially looking at it as a pilot. We would be the first city studio for a region that had ever been set up. Usually it's a city, but we're looking at doing it regionally here. So more information to be coming. If in the meantime, if you want to look that up, check it out, City Studio North Van. It's just City Studio NV, and it's got some ideas there. Tomorrow and Friday, we are in round 2 budget at the regional district. And then I just want to mention on Saturday, TRAC has got somebody coming to do a presentation. It's free to attend, and it's looking at active transportation. Check that out. And if you'd like to attend, you have to pre-register. That's it. That's all I got.
Can I just ask you a question?
You bet.
So is VCH sending, the communications around the immunization, how to register, what age group can register when? Are we getting that as a district to communicate out?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that information, I think that's already come to us.
It should have. There's
yes.
The next 3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. Communications manager sends it out to all of us. I forward it to us right away, so our staff have that. I've also been forwarding that on to Michelle Brooker from the seniors planning table, because Michelle then is also tied into all of the seniors groups up and down the coast, because they want to make sure that all of the seniors are aware. And if there are some who are in their homes who aren't getting home care, we need to make sure we can find them. So that information is going out. Yes, okay. It's been distributed. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. We'll turn to Councillor Toth for his SCRD report.
My turn. Thank you for that. As you mentioned, of course, we've got budget tomorrow and Friday, all day, 2 days on Zoom, Councillor Rowe. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my report out to council until earlier today. I just had some other stuff going on at the end of the week and over the weekend. So hopefully you've all read it, and happy to take any questions. I did notice a small formatting error there in the upcoming meetings that turned it to garbage for some reason. But yeah, Planning and Community Development, March 18th. Corporate and Administrative Services Committee, round 2 budget tomorrow and Friday. It has been interesting, the budget process, as you mentioned. It's director led, and it's nice not having the staff being front and center. But I don't know that it's been any less work for them, because we had a phone call last night for just over an hour talking about the presentation for today. And then we were in a Zoom meeting with them discussing some changes that needed to happen to that presentation for 45 minutes this afternoon. And then they had to try and scramble to turn around that presentation for us tonight. So I imagine it's been similar for all the directors. But hopefully, now that they've got the framework in place, hopefully next year will be easier. Yeah, happy to take any questions on my report. Fairly straightforward stuff over the last 2 weeks. The only thing to highlight is that sprinkler system issue at the Sechelt Aquatic Center. Internal corrosion due to bacterial growth or technical stuff that I don't understand, but the photos were impressive and the photos really demonstrated the magnitude of the situation, because we might get away with a small repair, but we might also have to replace that entire sprinkler system. And it was supposed to last until 2037. So the fact that we might have to do that work now is just one more thing on the list of issues that that facility has had. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
And your report has been posted on our website as well.
That's right. It has been posted in the document library, and I forwarded it out by email to a number of people that I knew would be interested in it. So
thank you. Any questions for Councillor Scott or Councillor Toth? Sorry, we'll come to you, Councillor Scott, in just a second. No questions for Councillor Toth? Go ahead, Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I just, there was one piece that slipped my mind, and I figure it's probably worthwhile getting it out there. Over the last 2 or 3 months, we've been meeting with our MP, Patrick Weiler, and some members of the community on Porpoise Bay and the derelict and abandoned boat issue and some of the challenges with that. We just received a letter yesterday confirming the federal government's commitment to do an illegal mooring buoy sweep within Porpoise Bay that hopefully will start addressing some of the squatters and derelict boat issues that we have in Porpoise Bay. They've committed to doing that once COVID lifts, so we're hoping to see some movement on that regard. There's also intakes on new federal funding for the removal of derelict and abandoned boats, and so there's a funding intake coming up in July that hopefully we'll have some submissions for, so that we can start removing a couple of the boats that are sitting on shore and just rotting away. So we need to make sure that we get our name in to access some of that funding for as well. So it's a moving project. They recognize that there is a desire in our area, not just the district of Sechelt, but also within the SCRD and the First Nation, that we would like to create a harbor authority within Porpoise Bay to help manage all aspects of Porpoise Bay, so that we can keep it clean and take care of our resource out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the pieces of funding that they're looking at, because one of the things we brought forward is that, we don't have the funding for that. And, is that something necessarily that we go to our residents for? No. So where would the funding come from to actually manage that? And there is a program called the Guardian Program. That's a federal program, and it's First Nations funding. The First Nations have been involved with us in these conversations. They're wanting to do something as well. So we don't know what that will look like, but we're exploring all the avenues. And one of the things that is we have to get a handle on, which is front and center, is that there's all kinds of different jurisdiction. We've got federal, we've got provincial, we've got municipal, and we've got First Nations, all in this one area. And everybody has a piece. So when the residents are looking to try and do something, they never know where to go. The federal government says, well, is it this? And they go, no, well, then that's provincial. And they go to the provincial, is it this? No, well, then it's First Nation. So they're going around in circles, and we're trying to bring everybody to the table so we can find a solution that deals with all those jurisdictional issues and is funded. Long-term project.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and just the commitment to do the illegal mooring sweep is huge, and that's cross jurisdictional. So that'll be just to get that moving is a huge step.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions of Councillor Scott? All right, so let's move on to council correspondence. We have 2 pieces of correspondence. So a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. The first item that's on here came to us from the city of Surrey, from some of the councillors in the city of Surrey. And this is, so as you if you've read the letter, Surrey is looking at leaving the RCMP and starting up their own municipal police service. Because Surrey is so large, there are some concerns about the impact on them actually leaving and the cost and the services, et cetera, that will be available to the rest of us. So this is, this came in. I know I would like to go to the RCMP and like to our local RCMP to get some input on this information, and so that we can look at what the impact will be on us before we respond to this. But I think it would be, I think we should respond if we find that there would be a detrimental effect to us. Councillor Toth.
I think it can almost be guaranteed that there's going to be some sort of impact to RCMP costs, both to us as a municipality and within the province. I'd be really curious to know if the Sechelt or the Sunshine Coast RCMP would be able to give even a hint of what that cost might look like when we talk to them during the budget process. It might be way too early. They may not even know until after Surrey has spun off its police force. But on the other hand, you know, in reading that letter, the RCMP is committed to keeping its members and giving them priority postings. So we might also be able to get our increased complement of members sooner rather than later. So just be nice to know if they've got any ideas on their budgetary impacts or our budgetary impacts.
Thank you, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of taking any action here. This is a decision that is fully within the city of Surrey, that they are fully within their rights to do. Just like Sechelt could adopt a municipal police force. I have no interest in that, but we do have the power to do that. So just like we wouldn't tell Gibsons what to do, we shouldn't be telling Surrey what to do. The only reason we're receiving this letter is because of political climate in Surrey, where these councillors are being completely shut out of all decisions. But that's still no reason for us to go completely out of our jurisdiction. It's their decision. We'll deal with the impacts.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying that we should say Surrey should not, you know, should or should not stay as part of the RCMP. What I'm not clear out on is what is the impact? And I mean, I attend the mayor's meetings with the Lower Mainland Division, and even there, the impact is not clear. So I don't believe the work has been done behind the scenes to determine, before they actually made this decision to say, yes, Surrey, you can do this. I don't think the information and the feasibility and the impacts of all of that have actually been looked at, so that we as a municipality and other municipalities throughout the province know what the impacts on us will be. Given the size of Surrey and how many members from that Surrey force are in the integrated teams, what's the impact on that? What does that look like for us? Don't know. So I wouldn't say we would necessarily write and say, we don't want you to do this, but I think it's something that we should express to the RCMP themselves, that we want more information about what the implications of that are for us. And I wouldn't know at this point how to frame that letter. I think that's a conversation that I could have with the RCMP here to get more information, and then potentially bring a letter back. So, I mean, if council is okay with it, I will pursue that and bring something back before it goes out, so that I can get input from council on that. Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have a contact at the RCMP office in Surrey. I can have some questions, send some questions to them.
I don't know if that's the level we want, right? Because it's not Surrey themselves.
You're right.
Yeah.
Head office.
Head office. Okay, head office in Surrey. Okay, that would be good. All right. Sure. All right. So, Councillor McLean, does that address your concerns?
No.
Okay.
it's not going to change anything. So I just don't want us putting time into it. So I don't want to argue this too much either.
I think the issue for me is if we know ahead of time or know what some of the implications could be, then that gives our director of financial services and our staff to look at how do we actually budget for something like that. We know right now we already have some pressures coming from the 2019 end of contract and the union negotiations. So we know that there's some pressures there. We don't know what these pressures are. Just like the town of Gibson's right now, knowing that in 2022, they're going to need to fund an RCMP division in their municipality and starting to put funds aside for that. That's what I'm looking at. What is the impact going to be? How do we actually prepare for something like that so that it's not a huge tax hit when it happens?
As opposed to telling Surrey to stay with the RCMP.
That's not our role. I agree with Councillor McLean on that.
Yeah.
It's not our role. Surrey will do what Surrey does. What's the impact on us is what I'm looking at. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. So where do you want to go from here? Do you want me to? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm good with, I'm really not in the mood to get involved in Surrey's business, but I can certainly see how there would likely be an impact. And, maybe there's a different advocacy role that we may need to go down. But I mean, the first, you need to know the information, what the impact's going to be.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll reach out for information and I'll bring it back to council and then we can look at where we go from there. Okay. Anything on the second letter? What I'm finding with the Minister of Municipal Affairs is when we have these teleconference, we put our ideas forward, our questions, our concerns, and information comes out. So this is an example of what's coming out now. All right, seeing no other, okay, Councillor Toth.
Sorry, in scrolling through the letter again, I have participated in a couple of those calls and they're very beneficial to hear what's going on in other communities and what their priorities, their issues, their feedback is to the various ministers that participate. Just in scrolling through this letter again, the one thing I did notice on page 147 of our agenda package is that the one paragraph about the homeowner grant centralization. I did ask Director Douglas about what impacts that may have for our staff with that process, and I understand that that's not likely to be a large impact one way or another, probably for a couple of years. I'm glad to see that there is a phone number here that people can communicate with provincial agents about this. Not everybody's online, and it's really easy to be, okay, we'll throw the form on a website and you can sign up there. But for the people that aren't online, it's nice for them to have been able to come into our municipal office and get help filling out the form and handing it in. And I don't know if that's something that Service BC will be taking on as part of what they're doing, but I'm glad there's at least a phone number and contact information here.
So I can actually take that back on the next call and bring that up and say, in this letter, this is what's indicated. How are you going to be dealing with and making forms available to those who don't actually have online access? Councillor Scott.
I think we can also take a proactive stance on this. They've given us the information that it's going to be online and we can start communicating that out right away. So just through our own communications campaign, so that it's not a surprise come June. Just of our own accord, whether they are able to help us out with in-person forms or whatever, but certainly the change in this is huge.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on any of the correspondence? And I don't see staff coming forward with any emergency items. I think they would.
No, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'd look for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded, all in favor?